Hello, namaste. um, I made a video for YouTube a few weeks ago called Illusion Undone, and it's two parts. The first part is the illusion of the body, and in that I explained that the body is not actually a fixed thing. It's not something that exists on its own and is unchanging. It's actually a process. The body is a process, a biological process that involves cell turnover. For example, our skin, it wears away and it gets replaced by new skin, and the blood carries the proteins to the skin to rebuild new healthy skin. So we take our food in, we eat it, process it, break it down, turn it into this body. But the body's really, it's a bit like a river. You can look at the river and say, yeah, I know the river, but actually it's not the same river that was there yesterday, because that water went by. So the body's like that. So in a sense the body is an illusion, a physical illusion. But then also the harder thing to get your head around is actually the personality and the mind. And we're used to thinking that our mind is where the thoughts are, and that our thoughts define us. But if you look at the part 2 of Illusion Undone, I actually tackle the idea of how thoughts are not the same as the things that they represent. So the thought of a mile, or the thought of a minute, is not the same as a minute or a mile. In it I gave the example of how somebody asked me to guess how long a minute was, and I started counting like you do, and I said stop the clock when it was 45 seconds. So although I know the idea of a minute, I don't know what a minute is. And although I think I know what a mile is, I really know what the idea of a mile is. And then when you talk about bigger things that are harder to imagine, so we think we know what a million miles is, and we think we know what the speed of light is 186,000 miles a second. We think we know what a light year is, because we can write down a figure, 6 and a row of noughts right way across the page. But really that thing on the page is not a light year. And so we can say, yeah, we know what a light year is, but what we really mean is we know what the idea of a light year is. And so the whole thing turns back on us, ultimately, and we say, I know who I am, I know what I am. And the first illusion is that I'm this body, this physical thing, and the science has shown us that that's not what we are. It can't be, because if it was, who I was 7 years ago is not in this room now. There's no part of me, because all the cells have been replaced. Cells just get worn out and replaced by proteins that we take from our food. So if I'm not the body, I think, well, maybe I'm the personality. But then the question is about the personality and the mind. What happens when we stop thinking? Who are we when we have no thoughts at all? I've been meditating for 30 years, and one of the things that happens when we meditate is we slow the mind down, we still it, and we stop it. And at the point where I have no thoughts, who am I? What am I? Where am I? If I'm defined by my mind, when my mind is empty, I'm nothing. I'm either nothing or I'm possibly anything. And the next thought that pops into my head, does that define what I am? What am I? Well, I did this Undoing Illusions 2 videos, and I got a reply by somebody called J Light, and J Light said to me, so since we experience ourselves as a body, and the course says in lesson 198, I'm not a body, I'm free, I'm still as God created me, what are we? And J Light asked in the email, are we love? Question mark. And I think love is as good a word as any. The problem is that the language that we use to describe things is a language that's been created so that we can discuss minutes and miles and kilograms and velocity and temperature and all physical qualities. But if we're not a physical body and we're not the personality, if we're still who we are when the mind is still and we're not defined by the thoughts that we're having, then what we are is not quantifiable, because the words that we use in English, I mean, I speak English, the words that we use are all designed to convey measurements, qualities, even emotions, and they're all tangible, and yet what we know from the course is that we're thoughts in the mind of God. But the problem is then, where is the mind of God? And I think the mind of God is the universe itself. And in that sense, the idea that defines me is like my blueprint. And I think that that, in traditional Christian terms, is the soul. It occupies this body. And when it leaves this body, if I was to die this second and leave this body, I'd look back and think, oh, that was my body. I won't think that's me. I'll think, I'm me, but I'm not in that body. So then I'd recognise that what I normally think of as the me, the body, is actually the vehicle. But it still leaves the question, and I want to thank Jay Light, whoever you are, for asking the question, what are we? Well, if we say, okay, I am love, I am the love of God, love extended into me, the question is, what is love? And then, are we going to go for a dictionary definition of love? Or are we going to look within our hearts and ask the Holy Spirit what love is? To me, love exists in conjunction with acceptance. What we don't accept, we don't love. But if God created the complete universe, and all that existed before this universe, this manifest universe existed, was what created it, then God actually truly became the universe rather than create it. And so when the intelligence of God looks at the universe, it looks at itself. And so the divine mind must have the quality that we call love. I think love is a human word that we try to fit within definitions, within dictionaries, to explain something that we experience. But we could also say that love is soul, or love is divine mind or divine consciousness. And when we experience it, we're experiencing what we are as well as what we're looking at. So if I am not a body, I am free, I'm still as God created me, I'm still an idea within the mind of God. What am I? Ultimately, I'm a piece of the divine accepting the rest when I'm in that state. When I'm attacking the rest, I'm definitely not. Then I'm defining myself by a bunch of thoughts. And as I said before, when I meditate and I stop the thoughts, I don't stop existing. So those thoughts can't be me. They may be thoughts that I observe, but they can't be me, they can't define me, because I exist without the definition. So I'm more than just a theory definition, I am a something. But how do we describe it? And I actually think the answer is we can't describe it, because we've not yet created a vocabulary to describe what is, the word is transempirical. That is to say, it's beyond the physical world, and it has qualities, or it has a definition that is not empirically definable, empirically meaning physically, practically. So what are we? We are what can't be described. We are part of the infinite. And I remember watching a film years ago. It was an old Tarzan film, and he was asked to do these tests. And one of the questions was, he was asked, how big is infinity? And he said, it is always one more than you can imagine. And I think that's what we are. And the danger, the difficulty in trying to define what we are is that we are always one more than we can imagine. Because imagination can't define us, because it relies on words and ideas. And we are something that exists without being defined.